Okay, we are now broadcasting. This is the Kafka study group number 9. It's just myself and John attending today. So I think last time we left it pretty much open, just to go away and play with stuff and come back. If you've got anything to present, we'll talk about it. I've got a couple of things I probably want to go through. So one of them, if I just load it up, hang on. So if I share my screen.
Yeah, there it is.
Cool. So
A very interesting title on your terminal.
yeah, I know. I think I was what was I doing? What was I doing? I can't remember. Yeah, I was trying to. I was writing a Docker image, a Docker file, and I did it. There was a curl command in the Docker file, and oh no, was it a Docker file? I can't remember. Something to do with the curl command. Basically, I curled a zip from a Nexus repository.
Oh, right, yeah.
And instead of writing it out to a file, it basically wrote it out to output the terminal, and it just went haywire.
Yeah, and it set your bash terminal title to something interesting. Yes.
Yeah. So in here we've got. Right.
Full stack YAML.
Yeah.
So was this using that kind of study lab with Docker?
No,
Was
I
was
actually
this your own
found.
thing?
No, it's not my own thing actually. I
Okay.
forked another repository that you can share. It's basically one of the guys from I think Udemy. I think it's Udemy, one of the training providers,
Oh, okay, right.
and he's a Kafka instructor, and he's got nice examples and stuff, and for some of his courses, and he's had a Git repository which I cloned and forked, and had some nice stuff in there.
Okay.
Right. So this repository, if I can find the
Was it this? It's not the size spike thing, is it? Or is that something different?
size spike.
I
What's
seem
that?
to have a SCI spike Kafka lab. I don't know if that's the same thing or if it's a different one. It's got a Docker thing in. Peter Graph, I think is the.
No, I don't
No,
think it's that
no.
one.
Okay.
I
There's
can try
probably
and
quite a
find
few
it.
out there.
Let's have a look. Simple Steph, that's the guy.
Simple Steph.
Yeah. So he's a Udemy instructor, and in there he's got this Kafka Stack Docker Compose repository, which I just forked. Started playing around with it. So he's got really like off the shelf configurations all set up, with all this stuff in there: Zookeeper, Kafka registry, proxy, topics, UI, various UI components, and it gives you nice tips and stuff. It's really well just explain how to work with it.
Okay,
So
cool.
all I did was clone it, and I'll just do a. Hope this works. It's been a long time.
Ding, ding, ding. Could be a short demo if it doesn't.
Yeah.
There we go.
So you can see it starts off with loads and loads of things.
Oh, yeah.
Look we can have a look at what's actually in the full stack YAML. So you can see there. Can you see the web browser? Or am I not sharing that?
No, it's just the terminal that's been shown.
It's another window. Hang on.
Oh.
I think it's that one. Yeah, you can see that.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's got a Zookeeper instance in there. It's got the main Kafka, and you can see they're not vanilla Kafka. They're all Confluent images.
Okay.
And you've got the schema registry, which is also a Confluent offering, and the schema registry UI, which comes from a provider called Landoop, which seems to be one of the quite popular ones.
Landoop.
Confluent Inc. again for the REST proxy. I've not actually tried. I don't know what role the REST proxy actually plays in the whole of the system. I don't think I've seen anyone actually trying to interact with it directly. I don't know how it's used. Something to investigate.
So is the REST proxy for the registry then, or
I'm not
for
sure.
Kafka? Because I seem to vague. I mean, I know it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
But I seem to remember there was, yeah, because the registry has. I seem to remember the registry having an API,
yeah,
so you could query it
yeah. Well,
in that way.
that container does actually depend on the registries being there, so it
Right.
does use it. Yeah,
Okay.
but you've also got a Kafka Topics UI again from Landoop. And you've got Kafka Connect, where you can connect to SQL data sources. Again, that's from Confluent.
Okay.
Um, and there's a Kafka Connect UI as well from Landoop. And you got Zookeeper navigation for the web UI from another provider, Alcazomon. So these are all from that simple Steph's configuration. I've not tweaked anything on here.
Okay.
So what we can do is, so I was going to show the schema registry. So all I've done is I've basically mapped some of these things to my host names file. So I should be able to go to
Okay. Cool.
port was
Which of the many ports was it?
it? Yeah. Come on.
And what is Google celebrating today? Some kind of, is that football? No, or
Football, I think so.
referee?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's
I'm not sure.
celebrating the referee, maybe. I don't
Ebenezer
know.
Cobbs Morley's 187th birthday.
Oh, okay.
I don't know who that is.
Hmm. I'm sure we could Google it if we were interested. So.
Yeah. Come on, this is taking forever.
Oh, there we go. Oh no,
No, that's not the one.
that's the other Google.
2001. Why is that not working? Why is it going to Google?
Um, yeah, try HTTP.
Taking some time.
So this is just a single Docker image with pretty much everything in it. Is that how it's set up?
No, they're various images, and it spins up
Oh, okay.
various containers. So you can see
Oh,
in the
right.
background, it's spun up about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. About there's about 10 different containers, I think. It's spun up.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting. I hope there are all the small versions of containers.
yeah. Oh man, this is taking forever. It's normally lightning fast.
Is there anything in the logs? Well, I suppose like if you've got so many different containers, like which container do you look in first to see what's not working?
Exactly. Yeah. Well,
Uh,
yeah. The it's all come through Docker Compose, so you can see all the logs. They're
oh,
all
right. Okay.
they're all merged together. There's no exceptions as
Oh,
such.
nice. Okay, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What the hell's going on here? Ah,
Woo! There we go.
that's the topics UI. Sorry, that managed to get the topics UI. So schema registry. There we
Oh,
go.
there we go. It's woken up now. There
Yeah,
we go.
I don't know what it was. I think something to do with the host names or something. Like, so, but yeah, so in the schema registry, you can so the UI is quite good. You can basically select a schema or create a new one. So as you can see, I created a schema here called com.gerbs.avro.person. I defined it as a JSON format. These are all Avro type mappings, type string, string, Avro string. So basically, this is a record um, for a person. It has a name, um, it has an ID, a username, email address, phone number, first name, sibling count, middle name, sex, and birth date, join date. Um, I've kept it quite simple, so they're mostly typed strings. There's a type enum in there as well. Um,
Okay.
and I think there's a type int here for the number of siblings. Yeah, so I created this basically just doing new schema because there's various ways you can do this, which I'll go on to. So I thought to myself, what would be the typical workflow in a project like this? Whether it's going to be very much similar to the SOA service registry, some sort where you have like a WSDL file that we talked about the other day, where you have someone define a WSDL file and you just basically conform to that. So I'm not sure how Kafka projects work. Would you think that if you're integrating with um, someone else's schema, they just give you the schema file and you just dump it into your registry and that's it? Or I'm not sure how that will work. I guess that is the only way I can think of it working.
Well, yeah, I think you must. Well, I think yeah, having a shared registry or shared access to a
Yeah,
registry, especially within a single organization, that's probably what you do. Across organizations, maybe you need to
yeah,
share something, but within inside an organization, you would think that it would make sense to have a shared, at least a shared, yeah, because this is just a schema. It's just the structure of the data and not the actual data itself. So it's
that's right. Yeah,
yeah. So there's no reason why you shouldn't share this with inside a company. I mean, yeah, there might be things that are considered business sensitive even in terms of the structure. That's why
yeah,
you might not share the whole thing. So I mean, you might have a reduced version of a schema that you do share rather than sharing everything.
yeah. So you can see here the schema ID. Kafka generates that for you, gives the schema an ID. It also
Oh, right, okay, yeah,
gives it a version. So it was version 1 to begin with, but since then I've modified it various times and it's automatically incremented the version for me.
cool,
Um, so you can basically just create a brand new one by clicking this button here. And it gives you like a sample field thing you can, the placeholder text you can modify. Um, and you can just whack in, um, actually, we just stick to that placeholder text. And if you notice the placeholder in the subject name, so schema has a subject uh, that was mentioned in one of the cloud durable articles that we did a couple of weeks ago. So when you look up the schema for something, you look it up via subject name, um, and you can see here the placeholder is the topic name of the topic. So you have like a
right,
my new topic hyphen value. Um, so the way the schema registry works, um, it'll become clearer once I go on actually. So if I give this a subject name of say I don't know, let's call it foo or something, um, validate validate the schema, creates a new subject. There you go. We've got a foo schema, an ID version 1, and you can do various things on it. You can see that if you go to info, um, it gives you some of the type mappings that you've got in there. If you go to
right.
config, is quite interesting. You can set the compatibility levels for it to be none, full, forward, backward compatible. Um, but there's a global compatibility level of backwards, if you see here. You can set it per schema as well. Um,
Oh,
I've not experimented with that, but there's various things that will happen. So it'll automate. I can't remember what the technical word they used was in Kafka, whether it not enrichment, evolves. That's it. It evolves your schema, the schema evolution. Yeah. So
right, yeah.
once when it receives a new type of document, it basically evolves your schema. If it can, if it can't, then basically it rejects it. So it stops you from actually posting to it.
Yeah, sure.
Um, yeah. So this tool is quite nice. You can see in the person schema. I was playing around with the compatibility level. I set it to none. I was trying to work out what that did. I can't remember now what it did, but you can set various settings to it. You can see the history as well, so all the modifications are made to the schema.
All right,
Um,
yeah, okay, that's nice. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
That's something we don't have at the moment. We just have, yeah.
yeah,
Well, if you got XML, if you put it into Git, you can kind of get some kind of versioning stuff. But yeah, this is
yeah,
nice to
yeah,
have it just in the place where you need it. So.
yeah. I don't know whether there is any. I suppose it wouldn't be. It'd be a nice idea to have some kind of Git integration with it, I guess, as well, if you wanted to. Um,
Yeah, I'm sure they must do
yeah,
something because you must be able to kind of go through different versions.
yeah,
I assume you can select like earlier versions and have a look at those.
yeah. So the other thing you can do is the schema registry at the very top. You can export the schemas. So you
Ah,
can
okay, right.
basically check them out and download the latest schemas,
Yeah.
and you can see what it does. It creates a zip file. Um, if I just share that screen again, you see that it's downloaded all the schemas in my registry as JSON files.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So what I did from there, I thought, okay, what I'll do is I will try and use that schema now. Now that I've got it, um, so I'll move on to what I did next. Is there a way to share your entire desktop rather than this particular screen? I think there is. I think I'm just clicking the wrong
Yeah,
button.
there's the tab at the top. There's like your entire screen, or there's application window. So you've got a choice. There's like
Right.
two pieces of text at the top. There we go. Way
What
there
can you
we go.
see now? Can you see my
I can
File Explorer and
see.
my browser as well?
I can see me.
Oh, you can see you.
Yeah, I can always see the browser that you're broadcasting in. That
All
you're
right.
running the Ring Hangouts in.
Let me check.
That's freaky.
That's yeah.
Um,
Let's try again. Any better?
um, oh, there we go. That's your desktop. Yeah,
Yeah, you can see both everything going on my desktop now at least. Good.
yeah, yeah.
So the scheme registry started. If I can now go open up my Java thing. Um, see. I better start closing some of these projects down. Otherwise, I'm going to eat all my memory. Was it that?
I hope all those projects aren't open.
No, not anymore. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, they closed down. Another one, I think.
Hmm. I think it might have slowed down your connection a little bit having the full screen on, but it sounds a little bit
All right.
echoey.
Maybe. Um, so first things was what I was doing. I was playing around with Avro, and actually, it's not this project. Avro. Nope, it's not this one.
Yeah, I have the same problem creating too many projects and then forgetting which one is which.
I've played around with so many different things.
I need to do some spring cleaning on my projects.
Yeah, it's not this one. God, it's a lot of projects. So many
Oh,
just playing around stuff.
that's what technology is for, isn't it? So, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of there's so many things to play with.
Um, hopefully. Yeah, I think this is looking better. Yeah, so what I did was I went to the producer example that I had before. I wrote a while ago using bits from the Cloud Durable website and also the O'Reilly site that Emma found. Um,
Okay.
and so I thought, okay, what I'll do is that I'll just hack around with that and I'll just modify it to do something a bit different. Just use the schema registry to post person examples, person data with using my new person schema. So the first thing I did was I thought when I downloaded the Avro schema definition from the schema registry, I created a Avro schema file from that. Because if you remember, it got downloaded as JSON files. But I
Oh
think
yeah.
I think when you want to use it in the manner I'm going to use it now, you have to create AVSC files. I may be wrong on that, but that's the instructions I followed. So I basically copied and pasted the contents of that one person schema into this file here. If I can just format that nicely, it might be better. Nope, doesn't want to do it. JSON support is limited. But yeah, you can see that is the entire field set from that person schema. It's got the name, phone number, first name, all sorts. Um, and then what I did, I thought, okay, now I've got this schema file. I want to basically post a person record to the schema. So I want to do something clever. I want to reverse engineer my person object from the schema file. So for that, I used a Maven plugin um, called
There's another thing there.
Avro Maven plugin. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
So there's a few key things to mention in the Maven POM actually. So I've got um, Kafka clients, Guava. I think I'm not sure if that's used or not, but it's there. Avro I've got the Kafka Avro Serializer version 5, and this is just another utility I'm using just to generate random data.
Okay.
Um, but they're the key things. Anything with the Kafka Avro Serializer, Kafka clients, and the Maven plugin. So all of them work nicely. And with the Maven plugin for Avro, um, you've got to give it a couple of properties. So you've got the source directory, where your Avro schema definition lives. So source main resources, that's my person AVSC file. You've got your output directory where you want to generated sources to get generated to. So I've just put it in target generated sources Avro, and it generates the Java classes there for you. There's a schema goal, and a couple of these configuration properties are quite important. Um, I think if you don't specify string type, yeah, what I was finding was any properties that are marked as type string in the Avro schema definition. So anything like type name is ID type string. They basically get built in the generated person object as type character sequence.
Oh, okay.
I thought I want to have string, so you got to tell it string type. You want a string.
Yep.
And also, just for encapsulation purposes, I also told it anything you generate the fields, just stick them as private. Otherwise, by default, it generates everything as public.
Okay.
So I did that, and I said I don't want it to be a mutable object. I want it to be completely immutable. Don't create any setters for it. So it's all constructor initialized. Um, so they were just some nice to have things I was put in there, which seemed to work fine. That was just reading the Kafka plugin documentation, and they're always quite straightforwardly explained on that. So by doing that, it generates you from that person and a gender enum. Because if you remember, one of the properties was of type enum, the gender.
Right.
You can see in there male, female, and that's what it looks like, the generated code. Um, it's got it's got the schema in there. It's got the class name. It's the person object's more interesting. It's got all sorts of stuff which I've not really looked into what it all does. Spike buffers and all sorts, quite low level stuff going on here. I guess it's because the serialization format for Avro is quite low level itself. Um, it's quite compact. So yeah, the other nice thing it does, it generates your builders for you as well, so you can program in a fluent style when you want to build one of these objects up.
Right.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
so you can see where I'm using it now. So in the producer example, what I did was, um, here we go. So I'm just creating 100 person objects, and I'm just using person new builder and just do set ID, set first name, just do some random values, um, and post it on a people topic. Um, and the ID is going to be the record person's ID, and the value is going to be, so what arguments to this? Yeah, key and value. Yeah, topic, key and value. So topic, key and value. Yeah. So it's posting the person object, and that was it. And you can see the properties. So this is quite important. Um, there's a couple of new properties we're using now are the schema registry URL. Um, so that's running on port 8081. It uses that when it looks up. So what Kafka does, if the schema the schema you're holding in the registry doesn't match what you're sending it, and it can't um, evolve it, it will reject you posting it. So you won't get a chance to post to the topic. It will just fail right there and then with an error.
Right.
Um,
Which is what you want anyway. So I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you don't
So
want to publish stuff that's wrong, so, or in the wrong
exactly.
format. Yeah.
Yeah, and
We could do some of that already.
yeah. Oh yeah, I know.
I think we had a problem with that a few weeks ago. Somebody decided to start publishing data in. It was the right data, but it was in the wrong format, and it just meant that people were getting wrong, inconsistent results.
Yeah.
Um,
So this is quite important. One of the properties here I've introduced, the value subject name strategy. So I posted on Slack a couple of weeks ago. There's a guy called Martin Keppelman or something like that. One of the guys is quite famous for writing one of his data books, how to
okay.
use data quite effectively, something like that. It's one of the O'Reilly guys. Um, he's one of the contributors as well, I think, to Kafka. And recently, so what happens if you don't have this property is your producer, when it sends stuff to Kafka on this topic, what will happen is you will actually, I'll show you what will happen if I was to comment it out that property altogether. The default record name strategy is topic value. So what should happen is when you post a person record onto the people topic, it will create you a brand new schema behind the scenes called people dash value or something like that. You can see that happening. So the schemas are basically specific to a topic. And this got me thinking the other day when I posted it on Slack, thinking, well, you may have various different types of record you're posting on the same topic. And they're not going to conform to the same schema. So what can you do then? Um, because if you're constraining the whole topic to be one schema, that's not going to work for that type of scenario. That's where I found the article from that Martin guy where he introduced another record name strategy. So basically, you get a schema per type of record rather than per topic.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm not sure why the default is like that per topic. I think that's the way Kafka was born, I guess, having just a single topic for a single concern. Um,
Well, I
you know,
think it like fits into quite a few situations. I mean, it keeps it nice and simple,
it does, yeah,
and I mean, it fits into certainly more of a microservices kind of architecture as well, because
yeah,
you want to pull like the same thing, the same kind of things from a specific source. And if you've got a different kind of thing, then it's a different source.
yeah.
Can you if they're gonna be different types, different structures, then you're gonna want to do something different with them.
Yeah, and I think the use case where that Martin guy explained where his strategy comes into play is where you've got different types of records coming on the same topic. For example, customer was created, customer address was updated, customer has been onboarded. All these events are during the customer onboarding lifecycle, and you probably want to record those events in a particular order as well. Having different topics for each one of those isn't going to work well. You're going to have them on the same topic with varying schemas in between those records as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where it becomes useful. So if I run this program now, hopefully it's going to work. Um, so it says it sent the records. So if I go back to Kafka schema registry, here we go. So if you see at the top, it's created me a brand new schema of version 1 of people-value. So the default schema subject naming strategy is the name of the topic, hyphen, and then the word value. Um, you can also have, and the reason it's done that is because my value in my record, because the record has a key and a value, my value is an Avro type,
Right.
whereas my record is just a simple string. If I had my key, sorry, my key is a simple string and my value is an Avro type. If I had my key also as an Avro type, it would also create another uh, schema for the key as well, also called people-key. Um,
Right.
so you get a schema for the key, schema for the value. So that's what got me thinking to, if that's going to be the case, then so either you in a workflow from a workflow point of view, you'd have to then know your topics on front, what they're going to be, and make sure you define your schemas first with topic name hyphen value and hyphen key. Um, Otherwise, the code's going to end up generating them for you based on that. So that's something to think about. Um, and if what I do now, if I delete this, um, there should be a way to delete it. Hopefully, nope, maybe not.
Um, I wouldn't have thought you. Yeah. I mean, do you really want to delete schemas?
Well, from because I'm just doing testing and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess I don't want to keep lying around if, just for a POC, I guess. But anyway, I've already run
Yeah.
it.
That's true.
Um, so now, what if I do now? What I'll do now is I shall. Um, I'm sure I managed to delete it. Oh, maybe I just restarted the Docker image fresh and it got rid of it. So what happens if I change this property to value subject name strategy and run it again? Um, so it uses the record name strategy.
Right.
Um, that's good. The record name strategy basically uses the type of person, which is going to be com.gerps.avro dot person, which is this here. so it's only used that. Um, so as you can see there, well, it hasn't. Well, you can't. Yeah, you can see version 1 hasn't been modified for people values. Not touched that. It's not touched that either because there's already a version. Nothing's really changed in the schema. But if I I'm not sure how easy it is to do, but you could not experimented. I think I have experimented with this, but you could modify your person schema here in your local um, IntelliJ just to generate a couple of new fields um, and um, generate a new person object and try posting that. Whether that fails or whether it evolves the schema is something dependent on your compatibility levels. You can make sure you configure that. And one of the good practices they also mention in Avo is also specify default type, default values for your schema values. So for a username, make sure if someone doesn't send it in, are you happy for it to be null? Or if you're not happy for it to be null, then it needs to be mandatory. You need to specify an ID, for example. Um, so if I were to send a schema, if I was to send a person object without an ID field, it would barf and wouldn't let me post it because it's mandatory and it hasn't got a default value. So the absence of a default value implies that it's mandatory. That's what that's saying.
Okay.
So yeah, so the other thing you can see now in the schema registry. So yeah, so that was probably it on the schema registry. But there's other stuff it's quite interesting in this whole Docker UI stack is the 8,000 topics. So you can see um, things like the people topic, which I'm posting to. You can see all the data I've sent to that topic as keys and the values. They're all serialized in Avro format. But it's nice you can view them in table format as well. You can tell that's at offset 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the key. That's the value. So you can effectively see what's in your record, what's in your partitions. I've only got one partition here. You can see the raw data in that format as well. And each partition at your offset. You can filter on them. You can query for stuff. You could seek to various offsets. You could download this data here. Look at the partitions. Set up the configuration for that topic. All the various properties you can see. I don't know whether it lets you change them or not. I think it just lets you see them at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's quite powerful stuff. There's also this concept of system topics, which I wasn't aware of. So Kafka must create some of these. Yeah, there's a schemas topic behind the scenes.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, like most messaging systems like this do have their own like
Yeah,
internal system stuff.
yeah. What else is there in that image? Trying to remember. So you had a schema registry. I've not played around with the Kafka Connect stuff, but I couldn't get it working. I was trying to come up with an example where I could just connect to a SQL database and shove stuff into that. So I started thinking about how I would use Kafka Connect. To be honest, how do people use it? What do they use it for? Do they just basically consume stuff of a topic and then write a producer to consume that stuff of a topic and then let the producer um, using Kafka Connect talk to a database? But I thought you don't need Kafka Connect to do that. You can just use any old JDBC driver and just talk to a database. So from what I've been reading is the way the use cases I've seen is where people have a producer, sorry, a consumer listening to a topic, and it maybe aggregates stuff together or transforms it into some other shape, puts it on another topic, an outbound topic, and then that topic is hooked up to Kafka Connect as a source sync. So the source sync architecture allows Kafka Connect to basically grab stuff off that topic automatically as it comes in and just shove it into a database as you go. So that's one of the most the use cases I've seen follow that kind of approach.
Right, yeah, yeah, because it's saying like Kafka Connect is used to copy from another like system, another
Yeah,
source of
yeah.
information.
Effectively, yeah, yeah. You could basically, yeah, just take stuff out one of your legacy systems, for example, and
Yeah,
move it across.
yeah. Usually connector type things are there, so you can do some system integration um, I, without doing any coding or doing very little coding around it. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's more of like a yeah, as much a time saving managed kind of service rather than a bespoke developed thing that you'd have to maintain.
yeah, yeah. So I've not visited port 8004. No, I've not tried this. So this is the zookeeper thing it gives you. I've not been into this. I don't know what the connection strings or username password is, but it probably allows you to see the status of all your brokers and things like that. Um, yeah, that'd be quite powerful. Um, yeah, so that's one of the things I played around with the Kafka Stack Docker Compose. The second thing I went on to play with um, was close this project down, open up the this one, consumer streams. This is the one, yeah, that's it. So the producer that we wrote, um, um, producer, oh god, cannot start compiler again.
Don't no SDK. Oh, that's not good.
Yes, sometimes loses the settings for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay, my JDK lose its additional certificates today. I couldn't connect to anything.
Oh no. Yeah.
Nightmare.
God.
There we go.
Right. So I started playing with Kafka streams. So I thought we've written a traditional producer and consumer now. We're used to that, and that's quite a straightforward API. What seems to be one of the buzzwords out there in the industry these days is using Kafka streams, and I wanted to explore what that was all about. Um,
Oh yes.
so, and again, it's quite a straightforward API. It uses this typical, if you're used to like things like using the Java streams, Java 8 streams, and map and flat map operations, that kind of stuff, it fits quite nicely in with that kind of way of programming. Um, it If you can see here, all I'm doing is so this is a consumer I've written. It If you look at the properties files first, that's quite important. Um, I've given it the schema registry because this
Right.
is again it's going to be using a schema registry Avro records it's going to be consuming. This property is quite important because the documentation talks about you need to specify this if you're reading a specific type of record, like a person record that I'm reading, or otherwise Avro uses some kind of generic record, and you might have to, maybe you got to use some typecasting or stuff to get it right or something. I'm not sure.
Ooh.
These next two properties are quite important: application ID and client ID. Um, and I made a note of that. Yeah, the application ID is used mainly by the Streams API and is very much like the group ID that you use for consumers in the traditional way of doing it. Um,
Okay.
and the client ID, I'm not 100% sure where that gets used, but it's used somewhere. Um, I don't think the client ID is mandatory as such.
Well, I guess it helps identify which is the consumer.
Maybe, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
probably does, yeah, yeah.
yeah. I
Um,
think it's always good to have client IDs, unique client IDs, that just for
yeah,
traceability to find out what on earth is actually going on if something does go wrong,
absolutely, yeah,
or even just to check if something is actually working in the first place.
yeah. So commit interval. I think the recommendations I've read is set it to 10 seconds, just for this application so that you can see stuff happening. I can't remember what the default commit interval was, but I was having to wait around for a while before I could see stuff being consumed. So I set
Right.
it to 10 seconds, so that seemed to work nicely. Um, and again, following the same stuff I did in the previous producer example, I did the same thing here using the POM. Brought in the Maven plugin for Avro, generated the same stuff, give it the same schema file here, just so that I could. I guess typically you'd probably have like a jar file, a shared jar file between producers and consumers, which contained the built person object, if you like, which you could bring in as a dependency. But I've just kept it simple. I've just regenerated the same object again using the same schema definition in my generated sources for the consumer as well. Um, and does this bring in anything different? Yeah, so it brings in Kafka streams as a dependency. It also brings in Kafka streams, Avro serializer, deserializers, because you'll see they'll be quite important. Um,
Surdies.
yeah, I was wondering what Surdies was because I've not come across that term until now. Whether that's just a Kafka abbreviation or whether it's used widely more than that.
I think it's been used before, but I think Kafka's making it more visible
Yeah,
because more people are using Kafka than like previous kind of ways of doing this sort of stuff.
yeah. So that's the dependencies.
Just
And
because people can't type serialization and deserialization more than once. So
uh, um, so all the consumer does now, it knocks up a streams builder. Um, you've got to configure the SERDI here to tell it to use the schema registry. So when you consume stuff in a consumer, it needs to check it's valid against the registry before you consume it. Um, Otherwise, one might throw an exception. So again, that saves you from consuming Duff data. But you could argue how it came through Kafka. I'm not sure. I guess you could come through on a topic which is somehow bypass the registry altogether. But this consumer needs to make sure that it conforms to the registry. So you tell it it's an Avro thing, so it has to conform to the registry. You then close this window. So that's my name of my topic, people. So we're saying build a stream around the people topic, and we want to say it's going to be consuming with this type of key. It's a string key, and using a specific Avro serializer, deserializer for the value because it's a person record. Um, and then I can all I'm doing is very simple here. I'm just streaming out the people, the person records that I'm getting from Kafka and just printing them out. Um, and up until now, you can think of all of this being very lazy at the moment. It's not actually doing anything until you actually call start here. So the way they talk about this in the literature, you'll see in the Kafka literature, they call the whole of this the topology. So all of the configuration about what you want to do with the data, how you want to map it, flat map it, or stream it, is known as the topology. You then after that you actually have to start the stream. So you create the stream and you start it. So all of this is basically your builder, um, how you want to do things, and then all of that's lazy and until you actually instantiate a streams object and you say start. um, and you'll see in the documentation also in Confluent they recommend you have a shutdown hook as well, so that if you did Control C and stuff, it would just shut down the stream as well gracefully. um, and this cleanup as well is recommended as well. Um, so we can see now this consuming. 'Cause, 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 'cause Hopefully that's going to work. Whoa, see, all those values came through. They were the values that we posted in the consumer in the first example, and sorry, in the producer. So they were sitting on the topic, and the consumer was started in now, and they've just come in.
Oh yeah, 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 sure.
So one of the things I was playing around the API was what I didn't want to do is just do a for each here. I wanted to basically stream it and then just call print on the stream, and you can pass in to sysout, but nothing was happening. It was just blocking for some reason. I couldn't get it to work, so I defaulted to just doing a for each and printing it out just for the sake of getting it working. So they say that's the way you do it, but for me it was just blocking. It wasn't doing anything until I hit Control C. Then everything got flushed. So I'm not sure what was going on there.
Hmm.
So I've left a comment in there saying I could not get it. I need to work out why that was happening. So yeah, that is the basic version of streams in action. And some of the very interesting things I found out about this is Kafka streams are stateful. What I mean by that is if I was to shut this consumer down, so unlike a traditional producer consumer using the traditional Kafka basic API, if you were to start another instance of the consumer, you basically read from the earliest offset each time because you've got it configured, for example, in consumer.properties, auto offset reset earliest, which so if you start a new consumer, it will start reading from offset 0 again. Another one, it will start reading from offset 0 again. So you
Right.
have multiple consumers, especially if they're not in the same group as well. So if they're in the same group, they'll share records between them, but if they're in the different consumer groups, they effectively read from the same from the start again. With Kafka Streams, it works differently. Now that if I shut this program down now, and if I was to start a new instance of this consumer again, you'd find that it reads nothing at all, because Kafka Streams stores state where the last offset was when you finish consuming from a Kafka stream. I can show you that on here. So in the full stack, there's a stream, Kafka Streams. Topic, the topics UI on port 8000. So you can see at the top two topics. So my streams app, if you correlate that back to the settings I've given it here, application ID, my streams app, there's an aggregate state store.
Right.
And if you go in there, that's empty. Is that the one? This is better. So you can see in here all the records that were that this stream processed. All of those records are processed. So there's no such you basically can't start reading from the start again. So the way I read about streams was streams when you start a stream up again, it recreates the state on startup. So only new records are consumed. So me starting this streams application up again, this consumer is not going to read anything in until it receives a new record, because the streams application knows from this internal streams topic is created behind the scenes that it's already read record 107. It's not going to try consuming from the start again. So until record 108 comes in, it's going to sit there happily doing nothing.
Right. Okay. Yep. Yeah.
And that's how streams are intended to work. So so yeah, that got me thinking. To think, how would you then, if you ran into a problem where you process things wrong, how do you recover from that? How do you, if you've realized that you've got the streams application which has shoved consumed stuff in a stream and shoved stuff into your database, but it's all wrong because it's been a massive bug. We need to start again. Um, so you want to wipe your database down and start again. But how do you start the streams application up again? How do you redo the state, clear the state back to zero again? So Confluent have got a app, what they call an app cleanup tool, which effectively allows you to fiddle with the Kafka stream state, basically set it back to zero again, so you effectively start again from scratch. But it's not straightforward because you got to. There's two types of reset you got to do. You got a global reset and a local reset. So the local reset you got to do is effectively you got to write a consumer like this. Well, not consumer. You got to write a Java application like this, which has it sets up a streams object and it calls cleanup on it only. It doesn't do any of this stuff here, the processing stuff. But as long as you can do cleanup, that's regarded as a local reset. If you once you've done that, you've got to do the global one, which is a bit more involved. I haven't got around to working out how to do that. You got to do it through using the Confluent CLI. So you got to get that installed, and you got to tell it. This is Kafka. This is where Kafka lives. This is where the streams. This is where the name of the streams topic is, and it basically goes and just wipes stuff out and starts it back to zero again. But it looked fairly involved, to be honest.
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah, if you got like
Yeah,
multiple things going on, then yeah, it's not gonna be easy.
yeah,
The best way to clean it is to make sure you've tested it properly before you put it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that I found that quite interesting. How about I was kept wondering why my Streams application was not consuming the records again when I started up again, um, and because the old style one would have. So it just hit me that because even though because you can tell it to always consume stuff from the earliest offset each time, but this property makes no. I don't think it actually makes any difference at all to the application because the streams by default they'll always consume from the tail rather than from the head, sorry, rather than the tail end.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that was my fun and games on Schema Registry and streams. And my next uh, task I wanted to look at after that at some point was going to be using KSQL. Have you heard of that? So the Kafka SQL engine,
Oh no.
effectively, I've not got into that because it looked. I was having trouble setting it up originally, so I've not got around to doing that properly. But you've got to set up a KSQL server and Confluent CLI and make them talk to Kafka, and effectively lets you query your streams in like an SQL manner, very much like Hadoop,
Oh,
Hadoop
right.
using something like Hive or something like that.
Okay. Right.
Um, so it lets you query out, run functions on it and stuff, and do it using an SQL type of stuff rather than a Java way like this, which is quite handy. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I need to get around to looking at that. So yeah, that was pretty much all my adventures with Kafka for the last couple of weeks.
That's yeah. It's quite a lot of stuff there as well. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
and I think the main reason I think I got so far with these things is I think I found the documentation to be quite good, and I think the community itself in terms of Kafka is the knowledge is quite a lot out there. So much stuff out there, so many articles, blogs, and all sorts, and Git projects and stuff you can learn from. It's quite nice.
I think it certainly shows the value of having Docker as well.
Yeah, yeah. Docker's nice to play with, just for getting POCs and stuff started up, and it's quite good
Yeah.
because there's a lot to configure. It takes you ages otherwise.
Yeah. So, did you look at which Docker images, which base images it uses? Does it use Alpine, or does it use like
Oh,
or does it use like Debian?
let's have a look. So, so that image there,
So that's the deployment thing. Yeah.
that's the image. You should be able to find that on
So yeah.
Docker
So
Hub.
okay, right. Docker Hub. Yes. Cookies. There's your GDPR in action. There we go.
That's a zookeeper image. You can check the um, the Docker file for
Yeah, it probably lists in the Docker file what.
Alpine Jerry.
Oh yeah, okay, right. Yeah, so that's from memory. That's only about 84 megabytes in size.
Okay, okay.
And if you get the normal Linux one, it's about 300.
Oh wow, so it's good savings.
So the Alpine one, the Alpine distribution is just really, it's like the bare essential Linux. It's basically just a few network, it's the kernel, a few networking tools, and that's about it really.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what all the other ones whether they use. So this is a Kafka one,
Yeah,
and that uses yeah Alpine as well. Yeah, so they're
yeah,
both probably lightweight. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's that. Because I mean, I think you can run. I mean, even if you run the normal Linux Java one, even at 300 megabytes, like you can run like several of them. You run half a dozen of them like without really noticing any kind of drain on your laptop.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so they're quite light on resources compared, certainly compared to running like everything in a virtual machine, where you can probably run one virtual machine or two if you're lucky, whereas like
Mm.
you can run like a dozen containers quite easily on your
Yes.
laptop without even noticing. So
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Although my Mac CPU gets hammered quite a lot, to be honest.
I
Lots
guess
of
it depends. It
containers.
depends what those containers are doing, obviously. So if you're running Kafka and a whole bunch of Scala and Java stuff, then yeah, it's going to use a bit of memory.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. 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 So I don't know whether if you've got anything to share, whether you've been busy with the cold, crying the flu all week.
Good, yeah, yeah. Last couple of days has been been a big struggle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I haven't done much with. I mean, thinking about it, but I haven't actually done anything with it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the biggest part for us is to design Kafka, or to actually think about what we actually need to do with Kafka to make the most out of it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Which is going to be the far bigger. I think the technical challenge isn't going to be that difficult. I mean, there's bits to learn. There's quite a bit to learn, but it's, as you say, it's well documented. But it's the what actually makes sense in terms of a design for us, and
Yeah.
understanding the data that and how we design that, how we design the schemas. You,
Yeah.
you really do need to put a lot of thought into that. I think.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's for us, it'll be an opportunity to basically completely re-architecture the design of our application
Yeah.
and
Definitely. Yeah.
start again from scratch. Almost. I mean, a lot of the applications we can just convert over, but it's we can break down a lot of the applications as well into more services.
Yeah.
And just think about what we're doing, because it does seem that it's really easy just to create like dozens of different topics for different things, and even having like a whole bunch of Kafka topics coming in, and then you might do some stuff with it and put it on different topics that's going to do something else with it, and so on. So you can build a whole pipeline of data processing with Kafka as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That way, so because they are relatively lightweight um,
Yeah.
topics, so you can you can have quite a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we had more people joining the meetup because they could perhaps share their uh, architecture slash topology and stuff of what they've got in place and how it's all working. Um, I mean, I went to a talk. I think it was DevOps I went to, and where one of the guys was talking about how they're using AWS Lambda and stuff, and some of the use cases and stuff for it, and that was quite interesting. And I can see something like this being similarly interesting if it was presented in that fashion. We used Kafka to solve this problem and stuff, and that'd be quite nice.
Yeah, there was another one. There's one with Clojure and Kafka
Oh,
um,
okay.
at DevOps again as well this year.
Oh,
That was really interesting, actually. I did go to that, but it's that was like so many months ago now. I've forgotten exactly the details, but
Yeah, yeah.
it should be. I think they're all on
They're on YouTube, I think.
YouTube
Yeah,
somewhere. Yeah, yeah. So I'll have
yeah.
to dig that out again.
Yes, definitely.
Um, yeah, because that would be the kind of thing I guess I'd be building, and yeah, it'd be interesting to see the differences between kind of dynamically typed language as well compared
Yeah.
to a static. Because it was, I think Kafka's saying, yeah, you just take the schema and you can like runtime, it'll just generate. You can just pass the because we like in Clojure you could just pass the Avro schema
Yeah.
and create the data structure you want out of that, create the data you want out of that around there, or during runtime you do it. So you wouldn't need to do anything. You wouldn't need any tooling to pre-create your schema from pre-create your objects from your schema. You can just do it in runtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, so saves a little bit of work, but yeah. But then you still need, yeah, you still kind of define some kind of contract around your schema just to make sure that data in and data coming in and data going out was the right kind of form. But I guess
Yeah.
you can use the Avro schema itself as your contract.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's cool.
cool.
So, yeah, again, we don't really have a agenda for next week. Um, we've run out of training material. So at some point we probably need to think about what else is there we can cover, whether we want to move on to a specific course or do we want to move on to reading a book, or whether we're quite comfortable now, we know the basics of Kafka, we want to try building something ourselves, or what's the next step? I have no idea at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to get around to building something myself. I think I was reading the canonical example is to build something that puts words on a topic and then something else that counts how many words you've published and that sort of stuff. So I mean, it
Oh
doesn't have
yeah,
yeah, it doesn't have to be massively complicated, but just have something built. Yeah, but I also like the idea that you talking about earlier about other people sharing their architectures and getting people
yeah,
to kind of present what they've done. That'd be quite
yeah,
nice.
yeah, yeah. Because we had a few guys in one of the
Mm.
previous meetups that were using Kafka in production, and it would be nice if they joined and shared some of their stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I guess maybe after the holidays, like in September, people are back from their holidays because I know a lot of people are
Yeah,
taking seem to be taking holidays at the moment. So
yeah,
um, yeah, so hopefully after yeah, early September, people will be around and available to kind of share that kind of information.
yeah. Okay, I guess we'll probably leave it there and just leave it open again. If we've got anything to present and stuff, we'll play it by ear and guess and on Slack,
Yeah,
and we'll
yeah, exactly.
do
Yeah.
that. All right, thanks, John.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks very much. Cheers. It's great. Thanks.